Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, I shall be reading Chapter 1 from High School Musical, Stories from East High, Volume Number 3, Poetry in Motion. It is of course inspired by the Emmy Award-winning Disney Channel original movie, High School Musical. So really this book includes a lot of things I love: High School Musical and poetry. Are you ready to be read to? Then let's begin. Chapter 1. Troy Bolton stifled a yawn. At the front of the room, Miss Barrington was reading yet another Scottish ode. English was Troy's first class after lunch. Today he drowned 2 cartons of milk and a turkey sandwich. Good choices for athletic nutrition, but a seriously bad combo for listening to 200-year-old poetry. Pinching the back of his hand, Troy tried to stay alert, but his eyelids felt as if they were loaded down with free weights. His head dropped once, twice, 3 times, then bop. A little paper aeroplane hit him. Troy sat up straight. He was definitely awake now. The tiny projectile had dropped onto his desk. He picked it up and unfolded the paper. Right away he recognized the neat, delicate handwriting. Oh, stay awake, Troy Bolton. Push your comprehension, 'cause if you nod off one more time, you'll be napping in detention. Poetically yours, Gabriella. Before he could stop himself, Troy laughed out loud. At the front of the room, the teacher looked up from her textbook. Is something funny, Mr. Bolton? No, Miss Barrington, Troy said. He quickly crumpled the note, hiding it in his fist. The tall, slender teacher peered at him through her black oval-shaped glasses. Miss Barrington wasn't very old, but her floor-length skirts, severely upswept red hair, and love of 18th century poetry made her seem ancient to Troy. It certainly sounds as though you found something amusing in Robert Burns' poem, she said. Why don't you share it with us? Troy silently groaned. Gabriella Montez was sitting in the next row. She'd been smiling at him when he read her funny note. Now that it had triggered trouble, she looked really upset. Sorry, she silently mouthed to Troy. It's okay, he mouthed back. Miss Barrington tapped her foot. Mr. Bolton, I'm waiting. She glanced at Gabriella and narrowed her eyes. Enlighten us. What exactly made you laugh? Troy swallowed. He felt heat rising in his cheeks. Gabriella was about to speak up when a voice came from across the room. My man wasn't laughing, Chad Danforth insisted. Miss Barrington put a hand on her hip and turned her head. Now she had a new target. Is that right, Mr. Danforth? Troy froze. Chad was one of his best friends. He always watched Troy's back, especially on the basketball court. But now was not the time for his teammate to execute a fake-out. Straight up, Chad said. You misheard Troy. He was just clearing his throat. Miss Barrington narrowed her gaze. I misheard him? Sure, Chad said. I mean, What dude in his right mind would laugh at what you just read? Troy cringed. Right. Sorry to interrupt, Miss Barrington. I just had to, clear my dry throat, like Chad said. You see how powerful that poem was? Chad went on. Like subliminal advertising or something. All right, Chad. That's quite enough. Miss Barrington cleared her own throat. Let's move on, shall we? Okay by me, Chad mumbled, exchanging a glance with his teammates sitting in the back row. 2 points, he silently mouthed to them. Zeke Baylor and Jason Cross quietly sniggered, and Troy exhaled with relief. He had no doubt that Chad had just saved him and Gabriella from all the joys of detention. At the front row of the room, Miss Barrington lifted her chin and addressed the class. For the last 4 weeks, you've all been studying a number of poets. Now it's time to test what you've absorbed. She snapped her textbook shut and leaned back against the edge of her desk. But I'm not going to give you a traditional multiple choice quiz. In my view, that's not the best way to test whether you've really learned what poetry is all about. Next Tuesday, at a special school assembly, each of you will read an original poem. This assignment will be a very important part of your semester grade, but I'm sure each of you will rise to the occasion. Chad scratched his head of floppy brown hair. Excuse me, Miss Barrington. He waved his hand. What do you mean, each of us will read an original poem? The English teacher frowned. What's not to understand, Chad? You will write a poem, then you will read the poem you wrote. Simple. But, Chad blinked. In front of the whole school? Yes, in front of the whole school. As I said, it's a very special assembly. Miss Barrington clapped her hands. So, will you accept poems written in any style? Taylor McKessie asked, turning to a fresh page in her notebook, or just the romantic style? She lifted her pen, ready to scribble a detailed answer. Any style of poetry is welcome, Miss Barrington said. We've covered a number of them in class, and I've given you all a reading list. Inspiration abounds. Take advantage of it. Kelsey Nielsen's hand went up. She nervously pushed up her round glasses. Miss Barrington, she asked, her small voice barely rising above the brim of her cap, you're not really going to make it mandatory that we read our own poems, are you? Of course, Miss Barrington boomed. Reading your own poetry is a vital experience and an essential part of the assignment. Now Sharpay Evans raised her hand. I, for one, think it's a brilliant assignment. Thank you, Miss Barrington, for giving us this opportunity to spotlight our individual talents. Miss Barrington nodded. You're welcome, Sharpay. Troy noticed Taylor rolling her eyes. Gabriella just sighed. Then the bell rang, and everyone scattered. Dude, I owe you, Troy said, walking up to Chad a few minutes later. Thanks for the save back there. No problem, Chad said. Just pay me back with some sweet passes on the court. You got it. Troy smiled, and the two sealed the deal by knocking fists. Taylor McKessie tossed Chad a warm smile as she walked into the hallway. Easy assignment, huh, Chad? She called. The assignment? Chad said, automatically tensing. Sure. Piece of cake, he told her, forcing a smile and trying to seem relaxed. The moment Taylor was gone, he grimaced. As if I'm gonna do it, he whispered to Troy. Yeah, right. Troy blinked. What do you mean? I'm not doing that poetry assignment, Chad said. That's what I mean. Troy couldn't believe what he was hearing. Chad, you have to. You heard Miss Barrington. It's a big part of your semester grade. Chad waved his hand. I'll tell her I've got writer's block or something. She'll let me off the hook. But I am not getting up on East's auditorium stage in front of the entire school, spouting rhymes about rainbows and red roses. This whole poetry thing freaks me out. Freaks you out? Sharpay piped up, overhearing him. She tossed her blonde hair and threw a special grin Troy's way. What's the biggie, guys? Roses are red, violets are blue. The writing is simple. What's key is presentation. Just find the right costume, practice in front of the mirror, and you'll do fine. Chad looked horrified. Sharpay didn't seem to notice. She checked her watch. Sorry, I've got to run, she chirped, dashing off. Drama class next, and I haven't warmed up my vocal cords. Bye-bye. Chad shuddered. He turned to Troy. Did you hear what she said? He whispered. A costume? Oh wow, that's right. I forgot. Troy smacked his forehead, suddenly remembering. Your leotard incident. Dude, don't even go there. Chad shook his head, looking a little sick to his stomach. He glanced around, making sure no one was close enough to hear. Troy didn't blame him. When they were in grade 4, their teacher had convinced Chad to recite a poem at the Renaissance Fair. Unfortunately, she failed to warn him that he'd have to wear Elizabethan tights, silk bloomers, and a hat with a feather. All the boys in their class were laughing hysterically at him the second he stepped onto stage. Chad had memorized the love poem perfectly. He was actually hoping to impress a girl named Rhonda, but when he saw every boy in his class laughing in the front row, he forgot the lines and began to stammer. Then he dropped his hat, bent over to pick it up, and his bloomers split open. It wasn't a good day. 6 months later, Rhonda moved to Denver, but Chad never forgot the look on her face as he ran off the stage, mortified. I can't do it, man, Chad whispered. I just can't. But, sorry, Chad shook his head. I'll catch you later. Troy stood like a statue in the hallway. A couple of kids bumped into him. He didn't notice. He was too upset by what Chad intended to do and not to do. Troy doubted Miss Barrington was going to let anyone off the hook for this assignment. Their English teacher was really tough. She'd never accept an excuse of writer's block. Chad wasn't doing well in her class either, and if she gave him a D or an F on his next report card, he would get thrown off the basketball team for sure. That wasn't just the school policy. It was Troy's dad's rule. All of Coach Bolton's players had to earn a C or higher in every class to stay on the team. The Wildcats were everything to Chad. He'd be devastated if he couldn't play. And the team needed him. He was one of their best players. A little frantically, he looked around for the one person he could confide in. Halfway down the hall he spied her, Gabriella Montez. I hope you enjoyed Chapter 1 of High School Musical, Stories from East High, Volume 3, Poetry in Motion. And you can join us next week for Chapter 2. Goodbye for now. Bye-bye.